This is the Content Marketing Podcast, episode number 104. Does content marketing really matter for B2B businesses? Hello and welcome to the Content Marketing Podcast. This is the show where we help you attract and retain business through the power of quality content. I'm your host, Rachel Parker of Resonance Content Marketing, and today is January 8th, 2015. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for episode number 104 of the Content Marketing Podcast. Just a reminder, we are live on iTunes and on Stitcher, so if you're listening to this episode on the blog, you can click on over and subscribe. That means you'll get new episodes automatically delivered to your listening device of choice. And if you use a different app for your podcast listening pleasure, we also have an RSS feed, and I will provide that link in the blog post. Once again, I want to wish everybody a very happy New Year. I know our last podcast was on New Year's Day, which was a little weird, but now we are back at work, and I have to say, I love the holidays. I love Christmas. I love the whole season. I love the music. I love the family. I love the food as well. But I am a creature of habit. I'm a creature of routine. And I am so relieved to be back to my little routine and actually spending the entire day at the office. Had a lot of fun over the holidays, did a lot of working from home, so quality time with the mister and the pups, and of course watching some really, really good football. But it's really nice to be back in the swing. And for me at least, I know the holidays are really over when I take that sweatshirt that I've been wearing nonstop for the past 2 weeks and actually break down and toss it in the wash. That's like the ceremony that marks the end of the holidays for me. But anyway, we are back to business, full speed ahead, and we are all ready to rock 2015. This month is all about B2B content marketing, that is business-to-business content marketing here at the podcast. And last week we addressed the question of whether lost my train of thought there. Address the question of whether B2B and B2C, which is business to consumer content marketing, are really that different. If you happen to miss that episode, feel free to click on over to iTunes or to Stitcher or to the RSS feed and get all caught up. Today we are back in the B2B realm and tackling the question of whether content marketing really matters for B2B marketers. But first, it's time to check in with our news feed for this week's rundown of news you can use. Topping this week's news feed is some news out of Pinterest. Pinterest has actually announced that it is launching promoted pins for all users. So just like you can promote your Facebook posts and your tweets and your LinkedIn posts, you will now be able to promote your Pinterest pins. Now, this is an experiment that Pinterest started about 8 months ago. They launched a beta program for their brand advertisers, and they've been really looking at that data, which is really smart of them. They released to a small group and just really, really looked at the data. And the data is very promising. One thing they discovered is that brand advertisers received about a 30% bump in earned media from those promoted pins. So, for example, a brand might promote a pin, and then someone might see that pin and repin it, and that repinning would be considered a earned media because they're not actually paying for that pin on the oh my gosh, I'm confusing myself. The person who repinned it, they are not paying for that repinning or anyone who might see that repin. So that was some really good data. Also, they noticed that promoted pins continue to perform long after a campaign ends. And I found this really interesting and really a contrast to the other sites like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, because those sites are constantly moving. Those feeds are constantly updating, and You might promote a Facebook post for 5 days, and then after that, it's already so buried under all that new stuff that's come in that it's really, it's done, it's finished. But because those pin boards work a little bit differently, those pins that are on that pin board stay there forever. So if you promote a pin for, say, so many impressions over a week or so, once you're done paying for that, that pin stays there. And the research shows that those promoted pins continue to do very well long after the paid period has ended. So really interesting data that has come out of this beta launch of Pinterest for their promoted pins. So they have announced that they are opening up promoted pins to all U.S.-based users. Apologies to our international audience. I'm sure you'll get there eventually. But for now, they're opening it up to U.S.-based users, and it is on an invitation-only basis. So what you can do is you can apply to get on a wait list, and unfortunately, I have no data how long that's going to take or how they're going to decide how to roll it out. But you can get on the wait list. And to do that, you go to ads.pinterest.com. And there's a little bitty form that you fill out, maybe 8 or 10 fields, and then that will put you on the wait list for promoted pins. And if you do get on the wait list and you do get on the program, please let me know how it goes. I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out. So that is our news out of Pinterest. Our second item is some interesting data again, and this has to do with CEOs on social media. CEO.com recently released the results, that's a tongue twister, of a new study among Fortune 500 CEOs and social media. And they found some very interesting results, not very promising results or not very positive results for those of us who believe in social media. They found that 68% of CEOs have no social media presence whatsoever. And of those who are active on social media, more than 2/3 of them are active on only one network. And as you might guess, LinkedIn is the predominant network that they tend to be on. But of those Fortune 500 CEOs who are on social media, they do report that social media, number one, helps to shape the company image, helps to build relationships with employees and the media, and helps to give a human face to the company. Now, I was looking through this data, and they talk about these CEOs that they viewed as a conglomerate. But I just wonder how it shook out generationally. I would be willing to bet that a 45-year-old or even a 50-year-old CEO would be much more likely to be on social media than a CEO who might be more advanced in years, just because the younger the person is, the more likely they are to be active on these channels. So I would just be curious to see how that would shake out generationally. So, researchers of CEO.com, if you happen to be listening, that is my request. But it was an interesting study. Now I'll provide a link to that in the blog post because it's got some really interesting data, especially if you are in a business that targets CEOs. That's some really good data that you're going to want to check out. Okay, our content hit of the week is a post from our friend Heidi Cohen. Heidi always has great things to share. And this is a post called 35 Tactics to Improve Your 2015 Content Marketing. So what Heidi does is she goes through 10 predictions for the year, which is, nothing new. Everybody's coming out with their predictions, myself included. But what she does is for each prediction, she gives certain action steps. So this is what's going to happen, and here are the action steps that you need to take to be ready for this prediction to come about. I think it's a really neat way to approach the whole beginning of the year prediction meme, and Heidi does a great job with that. Anyway, it's a very interesting read, and I will provide the link to it in the blog post for this week's episode. Okay, that's it for this week's update. If you stumble across something you think might be of interest to your fellow content marketers, please shoot it on over to us so we can share, and I'll provide that contact info at the end of the podcast. Now it's time for this week's Spotlight segment. We are taking a look at whether content marketing really matters for B2B businesses. Okay, yes, I admit it. The title to this episode is a little bit of a trick question because, this is the Content Marketing Podcast. And of course, I'm going to take the position that it does matter for B2B businesses. But I really want to discuss this question a little more in detail because there is still a popular notion that things like blogging and being active on social media and other content pursuits, there's still the notion that those are primarily the realm of B2C businesses, business to consumer. And there's the notion that B2B that B2B marketers have better things to do than, quote, write a little blog or quote, play around on social media. There's this attitude, we're a serious business selling to serious businesses. We don't have time for that, those niceties. And the problem with that perspective is this. It leaves out the human factor. It leaves out the fact that there is a human dynamic at work in the B2B sales process. Yes, if you are a B2B vendor, I hate that name, but I'm going to, a B2B business, let's say, yes, the name on the checks you receive is a business name, but behind that business name are human beings. And human beings are primarily relationship driven. And what is content marketing about but building relationships? And if you don't believe me when I say that B2B that B2B business is relationship driven, let me ask you this. Have you ever lost a contract because your competition happened to be the decision maker's golf buddy? Or, even to take it down a level, have you ever been up for a job and then not gotten it because, the boss's nephew just got out of college and needed a job? So if anything, B2B business, I would venture to say B2B business is even more relationship driven than B2C. Number one, when you're talking about B2B marketing and sales and those transactions, you're typically talking about a pretty high dollar amount. This is not a $5.99 Starbucks, although $5.99 is pretty outrageous. But, we're typically talking thousands, even hundreds of thousands, up to millions of dollars involved in these B2B transactions. And because of that, trust is even more important. When a business engages in a relationship with another business, they need to make sure that business is legit and that they can trust them with these very high dollar, often very high stakes deals. So, and of course, content marketing is one of the ways that we build trust between the marketer and the marketee. So that trust factor makes content marketing even more relevant to the B2B business relationship. Number two, and this is tied to the higher dollar amounts, but B2B, I don't even know what to call this. B2B relationships, I guess, tend to be long term. It's very seldom does a business do a once and done transaction. I mean, when it comes to their travel, when it comes to the services that keep their business running, the trash collectors and the janitorial services, all the way up to $1 million software contracts. All those are involving long-term relationships. And because of that, again, we're going back to the trust factor. When a business decides on a vendor, picks someone that they want to work with, they want to make sure that person is going to be in there for the long haul. And that brings me to the third reason that B2B business is more relationship driven, is that change is painful. I mean, if you've ever worked in a large corporation and been in charge of finding a vendor for a particular need, it is painful. I mean, you've got to go through several layers of authorization. You've got to get budgetary sign off. You've got to get that person in your system as a registered vendor. I mean, it is a long and painful process. So when a business makes a decision to do business with another firm, they need to make sure that that relationship is going to stick and that they are not going to have to flip-flop and go scrambling to find someone else. So because of that relationship-driven nature of B2B business, in certain ways, content marketing is even better suited for B2B marketing than it is for B2C marketing. For one thing, most B2B purchase decisions are research driven. Now, not many consumer purchase decisions require research. Yes, if you're buying a car, you want to do some research. Definitely if you're buying a house, you want to do research. But, if I'm in Midtown and I decide I want a cup of coffee, I'm not going to do a whole lot of digging around to find out which places are available, what their prices are, what their offerings are, blah, blah, blah. I'm typically going to find the closest place and get my coffee there. And that's the case for a lot of consumer decisions. When it comes to buying sheets for my bed, I might look for some different options, but it's not a big research undertaking. However, when a business decides to make a purchase decision, they typically go into research mode. The business has a problem and they begin researching solutions. And because of this research-driven nature of those B2B purchases, content marketing can help in two ways. Number one, most of that research begins online, and most of that online research begins with the Google search. They might even tell a lower level employee or maybe even an intern, hey, we need to solve this problem. Go online and find me 10 vendors who can solve it for us. And because those searches begin online, you need all the SEO, search engine optimization mojo that you can get. And what does content marketing do for us as far as search goes? Well, it ups our search mojo. It provides more fodder for Google. It's putting those keywords out there, and it's making much more likely that we're going to come in at or near the top of that list when that person goes to research our products and services. And then the second reason that content works very well with this research-driven nature of B2B decisions is that content marketing offers the opportunity to provide that data that people are looking for when they research those solutions. So when that intern goes to research those, create that short list of vendors, they're going to be looking for particular keywords. They may be even typing in entire questions into Google. And so with content marketing, we can anticipate what they're going to be searching for, what their questions are going to be, what they're going to need to know to get to that next level. And by speaking to those needs, we can start to build that relationship, even at those early stages, by being very helpful and using that utility that Jay Bear talks about, YOU, utility, and answering those questions for them. The second reason that content marketing is even better suited for B2B than B2C is that B2B typically has a longer sales funnel. Again, going back to the consumer side, most consumer purchases are done in a fairly short time span. Again, if we're talking about high dollar items like cars and houses, yes, it'll be a longer process, but most things, if I go to buy a pair of running shoes, I'm going to try on a few pairs, and if you're a diehard, you may go to more than one store, but typically that purchase decision is going to be made in a fairly short time span. B2B decisions, on the other hand, typically take weeks and sometimes even months to make, and what content marketing allows us to do is to address the specific needs at every level of that sales funnel. And I kind of touched on this last week, but I want to revisit that because, for example, you talk about phase one as the research phase. This is the intern creating that short list. That is a good space to slot in your free kind of low-hanging fruit, your blog, your YouTube channel, your social media presence, stuff that you put out there for general consumption. And then maybe a phase two would be inviting someone to download a white paper or maybe an ebook in exchange for that email address so that you can get that person in your system and start having a conversation with them. Then the next level down might be inviting them to a webinar, and then the next level down might be inviting them to view a case study. Maybe you solved a problem for a consumer that is very similar to this prospect that you're talking to. So content really allows us to continue that conversation at every level of the sales funnel beyond here's why my stuff is amazing and here's why you should buy it. It really helps us to help them through that sales funnel and help them make a decision. And the third reason I think that content marketing is even better suited for B2B than B2C in some cases is that the importance of trust. And we talked about that a few minutes ago. Businesses put a lot of time and a lot of effort into making purchase decisions and bringing vendors on board, and they do not want to have to start over. They want to know that they can trust you. And content marketing, of course, is one way to build that foundation of trust. So there you have it. Those are my thoughts on why, yes, content marketing not only does matter to B2B businesses, but is actually ideally suited to that B2B sales process. As I mentioned, we will be covering B2B content marketing all month long. So if you have any questions or want to join the conversation, I would love to hear from you. And just let me know, and I will provide that info at the end of the podcast. Now it's time for our content marketing tip of the week. For today's tip, I want to talk about B2B content marketing and the use of video. A recent study revealed that actually 76% of B2B marketers use video. So again, we're kind of dispelling that myth that video is one of those things that, you're, quote unquote, playing around on YouTube, or, it implies a lack of seriousness. And it also brings to light that your video content does not need to be limited to those slick, polished, lengthy advertisements that you might play on a loop at trade shows. What we need to do as B2B marketers is think about how you can be more useful and how you can translate that usefulness into a video presence. Think about Matt Cutts. You might be familiar with Matt. He leads the web spam team at Google, and he does, or at least he used to do, he's on sabbatical right now, but he would do a weekly video where he would answer webmasters questions from around the world about, how Google works and how to avoid getting dinged by the Panda update, and how to use keywords, and questions about guest blogging and all kinds of things where people would ask him questions about how they can better appeal to Google from a search perspective. And he would do these weekly videos where he would answer these questions. So think about how you could do something similar to that. You could do a weekly, no more than 90-second spot where you answer a frequently asked question. And I'm not talking about the frequently asked questions on your website. I'm talking about actual questions that current and prospective customers have. And, it does not need to be a fancy Hollywood production. It does need to look professional, but don't get too wrapped up in the production values, because the point is just to get that content out there and to let it speak for itself. So, just you in front of a webcam, maybe use a program like iMovie, or there are several others out there that can help you, put in those intros and outros, make it look nice and professional, and just get it out there. When you put that video content out there, answering questions in a way your audience will understand, you will reap many, many benefits on many levels. So if you are holding back from using video in your B2B content marketing, this is the time to get involved. Okay, campers, that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Content Marketing Podcast. If you like what you've heard today, please feel free to subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher or via our RSS feed. And if you really like what you've heard, please leave us a quick review on iTunes. I would so appreciate it. And I want to thank everyone who has left us reviews already. So appreciate you taking the time to do that. For more information about content marketing, you're welcome to visit our website at resonancecontent.com, where you'll also find links to our pages on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and other social networks. I also want to invite you to check out our monthly webinar series. Every month, on the last Wednesday of the month, we have a free VIP webinar that is open to anyone who would care to register. And the next one is going to be about B2B content marketing. That will be on January the 28th. It's going to be from 12 to 1 Central Standard Time. And if you cannot join us live, we will be recording and sending out that recording afterwards. So I invite you to register. Just go to resonancewebinar.com and you can register, and you will get the link when the podcast is ready to roll. And you will also get the link to the recording afterwards. I would love to have you join us for that. As always, I like to leave you with a quote, and today's comes from Albert Einstein. He once wrote, quote, "A person who never made a mistake never tried anything new," unquote. Again, this is Rachel Parker with Resonance Content Marketing. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you again next week. Take care.